Hello everybody, this is Fernando for the latest Mysteries and Oddities of the Week video. So the other week or so I did one, kind of like inaugural one, in terms of a new set of videos I'm interested in. This one involving phrases that you and I have heard of all this time, all these years that we've lived, and yet we wonder exactly where their weird origin came from. Like these words don't make sense, but yet we use them, particularly when it comes to certain moments in life. By the way, someone pointed out that they're known as idioms. I thought there was a phrase for them. I absolutely did. Like there had to be some kind of official word for them. Just couldn't remember at the time. So thank you so much for that. But yes, they are known as idioms. And then reading the comments that others were mentioning of this new turning point, it seems like it's pretty positive. So I'm glad you're all enjoying this new version of Mysteries and Oddities, and thought I would mix in another one to try to gauge more of your thoughts while I wrap up the aliens and UFO sites. Plus, this is much more fun than the aliens and UFOs ones for now, at least. I'm probably going to give that a rest for a good while, and then focus more on this one here. And on this one, I'm going to give you a 2-for-1. Two phrases, essentially, that you and I have heard of all this time, but now we get to share together the actual origin of them. The first one is paying through the nose. You and I have heard that all the time. And then the other one is bite the bullet. Both of them, though, have somewhat darker origins. The one, though, for paying through the nose absolutely has the more sinister one. I mean, you would not believe the violence involved with this one. So it'll definitely open your eyes. The next time you hear someone say that phrase in your life, you'll know exactly where it came from. So yes, let's go ahead. Let's start with the more darker one, the paying through the nose. So here's its more sinister origin. It actually has to do with taxes, if you could believe it. Everybody knows taxes. Everybody hates taxes. There ain't a person alive that necessarily loves them other than those that collect it. That happens to be the same situation here. So according to popular concept, this is the origin of paying through the nose. You have to go to 9th century Ireland. 9th century, that's a long time back, hundreds and hundreds of years back specifically. There in that country, there were those Vikings, those Danes, that were able to conquer a lot of those locations, particularly, of course, the Irish people inhabiting them. Once they did so, they placed a very strict tax on all of the inhabitants within each region. Of course, this would be something like a tax that was not voluntarily agreed upon, that people would vote in or anything like that. No, this was just something where we've conquered you, now you're going to pay us a tax or you're going to have very bad results. It was known as some kind of a loose form of a nose tax, and here's why it was called that. Anytime certain parts of the country, anytime there was a census done to try to find out who paid and who didn't that tax, the easiest way to do so was to keep track of a physical aspect, and this was a person's nose. And this is how it worked. So instead of trying to remember, like, let's say names or specific addresses there, no, it was essentially whoever was collecting the tax would look and then say, did you pay your tax? Did you get to proof? Okay, perfect. Nothing's going to happen to your nose. Simple as that. Then if somebody was asked, did you pay your tax? Oh, you're not paying your tax? Oh, you don't want to pay your tax? And then it got to a more threatening standpoint. Finally, then whoever was doing so, no doubt it was a group of people to do something like this, they would leave a physical mark, and this was on the nose itself. So whoever refused to pay that tax would have this done to them. They would essentially have their nose slit, in some cases from their tip of the eyebrow all the way down to their nose. And I was reading in other places it would be like almost outright like the nose just cut wide open. That way it would be a physical mark, almost like a here's what'll happen type of thing to everyone out there, to let them know if they don't pay their taxes, this is what occurs to them. Plus, it was a way, again tied to the census, of these tax collectors to know afterward who paid and who didn't. Very, very dark origin, clearly. So that's why paying through the nose comes to that. It was literally someone having to pay, and if they refuse on the tax side, with the physical parts of their nose. Ugh, it's just crazy reading this and realizing that the next time you hear that in your life, like someone says, "I can't believe this, I'm paying through the nose," then you can tell them that at least you weren't, in this case, those poor Irish people who literally had to pay with their nose on a forced tax. So crazy, crazy world. Now, as far as the other phrase, the one for bite the bullet, it's still a little dark, but not necessarily as dark as the first one. So this one is a little bit more ambiguous too. There's not too much of a more direct origin to it. Instead, it's more of here's where it could have been. So bite the bullet. You and I have all heard it whenever it comes to somebody having to accept something they don't want. Kind of like in the way it ties into the same paying through the nose in terms of taxes. So bite the bullet, you hear it all the time when someone says just deal with it, bite the bullet. So now here's the origin associated to it. The most common, origin, but still not 100% concrete, is that there was maybe at one point a time where people would take a shell casing of a bullet and then take out everything inside and outside of it, just the actual casing itself, and then place it on a tooth. And then this tooth would be one that was like severely damaged, like maybe it was broken, or maybe there was some kind of exposed nerve. Whatever was the case, the shell casing would then go around the tooth, and then the person would bite down onto it. That way it would help protect the tooth and its surrounding areas while I guess it was recuperating. Although it makes you wonder, of course, when you have something like this, something metallic, or something like that could be damaging around the tooth itself like this, how much help that would be afterward. But the person would literally have to bite into it in order to help alleviate pain, hence the origin bite the bullet, and that just stretched out into anything else thereafter. But again, that origin is still a little loose. Another possible origin of it has to do with this. Back then in the British Empire, instead of those shell casings, the ones that were more metallic, they had something called a cartridge, and you're looking at an example of it now. It was known as a paper cartridge. It was something that contained gunpowder within it, and you would have to take that cartridge, bite it open, and then load it into the rifles. That's essentially how these muskets were filled before they were to be fired. I think you've seen examples of that in the movies. If you watch stuff like what's that movie called, Barry Lyndon, or others out there that Mel Gibson film as an example. And so what happened was people would have to bite into it, and I imagine that the scenario was that stuff would happen, like someone would be shot, somebody would be executed, something along those lines. And so people would bite into it, and it just naturally stretched from one that physical aspect into the situation itself. It was a dark situation. It was something to get over. People were in that place where maybe they were fighting for themselves, maybe they were fighting for their country. Some of them were there, wanting to be there. Others did not at all. And so maybe that's where that origin came from. But in either case, they would bite it, open it, and then get it over with, and then fire the gunpowder. So that is another aspect associated to that bite the bullet origin. I think there was one more associated with it, and it had to do with chewing a bullet, more along the lines of, I guess it was instead of biting on it, it was more chewing. But that's something else, at least that could be explained, but probably the loosest of all the origins. But that's pretty much it. That's all the info associated with that origin. Not much on that one, but still lesser damaging at least than the original one, paying through the nose. But yes, what do you guys think? Do you like this particular set of videos where I start talking about these idioms and then giving examples of it? I love this the way that this could go, because there's so many idioms to go through that I could do two of them at a time. Unlike, let's say, the cryptids or the aliens or the ghost stuff, I could do two of them in one for you and still have a bunch to produce afterwards. So if you want something more like this, let me know in the comments, and then I'll be happy to read them afterward and then see if I'll develop a separate series for them. So, well, alright everybody, thank you again as always for your continued support. I appreciate it. By the way, I did reach indeed 5 million views, so I'm thinking about doing something special soon. Technically, I've already reached it a long time back. I have to delete a bunch of videos due to that horrible time from Toho Studios, Legendary Pictures. I was already actually truly over 6 million, but in this case now with more official standpoint here, it just reached over 5 million. But yes, I'm thinking about doing something special afterwards. So all right everybody, thanks again as always, take care.